What up, crew? Great to have you here at the card table. I'm your host, Vineet, aka Card Mechanic, and on this show, we interview magicians, cardists, YouTubers, and more. So, let's do it. Today, we're going to be sitting down with an incredible magician who's been doing magic for many years now. He has just been killing it on social media recently. So, put your hands together and help me welcome Doug Kahn. Hey, Doug, great to have you here at the card table. How are you doing?
Good evening, Vineet. I'm living the dream. That's all I'm doing. Lately, my life is a bed of roses. It's true.
First time I've ever heard that.
Is it now?
Yeah, usually just we're doing good. Never heard life is a bed of roses.
Well, I wake up every morning very excited about my life, which, maybe I couldn't say that over the last 10 years, but I came out of this pandemic, pursuing dreams that I've had. We talked briefly about this right before the interview.
Yeah.
I've been interested in particular, sharing my information online with platforms like YouTube and TikTok and such. So I've garnered quite an audience there, and I'm quite excited every day to share my information, my talent, whatever you want to call it. It's been a joy doing this, and I intend to pursue it moving forward. So.
That's fantastic. That's really great to hear.
It is. It's been a rejuvenation, for as an older magician, especially after you work professionally, which I guess we'll talk about. You get a little jaded about the work. If you're doing it every day as a living, maybe your creative spark or maybe your, initiative to learn new magic is not there. But now for me, it's there every day. I wake up excited with, wow, what am I going to do with magic today? It's a great feeling. Awesome. I feel like a noob almost.
That is awesome. That is absolutely amazing.
It is awesome. Yeah, it is.
Okay, so now that you've talked a little bit about this, I'd love to know a little bit about your journey from probably when you had your first ever performance, or maybe one of your first ever performances, to now. So could you talk a little bit about how you've grown and changed, and what you've seen throughout that journey?
Yeah. Well, my first performance was in 3rd grade, but let's skip that until I. But that was a life-changing moment when it was a teacher, right, who taught a few of us tricks, and then we presented the magic for the class. So I don't know that if I hadn't had that experience of presenting myself in front of a group, using secret things, and maybe I wouldn't be who I am today if that 3rd grade Doug Kahn didn't happen. My first gig was right out of high school. I auditioned for Kings Island in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's where I had the pleasure of developing as a magician, and what a joy that was to be in that town in the late 80s. Guys like Tom Frank and Paul Swinford, Sean Greer, who they had both just come back from New Orleans learning from Cellini. And it was just a hotbed of magic, especially close up. 3 magic shops and just a lot of sharing going on. Long story short, I auditioned at Kings Island Amusement Park. They sent me to North Carolina to Carowinds Amusement Park, where I worked as a professional right out of high school. And very happy to get that gig, because my counselors in high school are none too happy about me wanting to be a magician. I try to explain that to anyone with a brain. What are you going to do after high school, Doug? I'm going to do magic. So have you considered the military, Doug? These are the, I consider it. I'm going to do magic. And that's what I did. So,
wow. So, so when you moved to, you said North Carolina, correct?
Yeah, North Carolina. I spent the summer there, the season, which was a great season. Working a venue like that where you're doing 5 or 6 sets a day, you really develop the real stuff. There's not a lot of venues you can work as a developing magician where you get those kind of reps. And street performing is one of those. We'll talk about that. That's step 2 from Carowinds for me. So yeah, I came out of there really a developed magician. I'd started to find my character and get a good beat for what needed to be done. But after the season ended, now I'm jobless and need to find something to do until the next season. Well, that ended up being, I worked a season at La Rock's Magic. I did Halloween and Christmas, and this was what a great time this was to develop as a magician, working in magic shops when those were actually a thing around the country. You could go into these shops and read the books and play with all the tricks and learn to present this material as people came into the shop, learn how much crap is out there in the magic world, how much of a scam. 90% of the junk they foist on you actually is. But now we just have to buy the crap. You don't get to learn it that way. You just have to face the music and spend your hard-earned money on junk.
Yeah, I've never had the opportunity.
Yeah, you're a book guy, right? You read books like smart people. So that's yeah, that's my North Carolina story. I went from there back to Cincinnati, and from there I set my sights on street performing. That's phase one. Yeah.
Very, very nice. So did you ever find it, did you ever struggle when first getting into performing? Like, do you think you just, hit it off as soon as you started, or were there any obstacles you faced or things like that?
I don't know that I've ever felt like I'm a comfortable performer, and all the facets of magic. There's so many I enjoy, right? Like the thing I enjoy most is cracking a magic book, just pouring through the cool secrets, the knowledge, the techniques, that's my favorite thing, is just to study the art. And if there was a job I could do and do that as a living, I would do that. If you're going to work as a professional magician, though, you're going to have to present yourself to audiences. So yeah, I do that, but it's really my least favorite thing. And if I had to leave one part of my life out, it'd probably be live performance. Although, as I say, I wake up every day, now that I've developed my own venue where I'm able to do what I want in my own conditions, which is not the case for 99% of professional work. Now that I have that working in my favor, I'm much more excited to share presentations. So maybe that's changing a little bit.
It's funny you say that, because I've seen some street performances on your YouTube channel. It seems like it comes across so naturally without, everything just seems to flow.
Theater, young man, theater. Really, I'm thinking about when's lunch. No, street performing, if I had to say, it's similar to building your own venue. Like I would equate my normal gig, the agent calls me, I got to go work for Microsoft. It's a bunch of drunk corporate businessmen, and they're listening to Rock and Doopsie, who's playing music way too loud. So I have loud music, and I've got to go interrupt these drunk businessmen who have preconceived notions of what I'm doing. And it's just, that's 90% of the professional work for, higher end. And kudos to all the magicians doing it. You guys do God's work, and I know you're doing it well, and it's fine. It's just not what I love to do, right? So working the streets provides that similar, do what you want. I can do whatever I'd like and set my own performance guidelines to some extent. There's things that just don't work on the street, and there is formulas that make the street work better that you kind of have to follow. But yeah, I do enjoy that. So when you see me happy out there, I am happy. Usually.
That's a key word.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you can't fake it through the bad times, you can't be a performer. Sometimes it's just, you got to fake it.
Absolutely. I've never had the chance to actually do street performance. I've done like around my college campus or with friends, but I've never actually had the chance to go out and street perform. So I don't really know, exactly how that's like. And it's kind of difficult to do it now, since people are wary of
it is.
People coming up to you.
I have started street performing recently, and we're getting back to some amount of normalcy, at least in New Orleans. I know it's all regional and different, but there is. Yeah. I actually had someone sign a card a couple of weeks ago. I was like, am I going to ask this person to touch my pen? Yes, I am. And I said, would you be willing to sign a card? And they were. And I was like, I get to do card to wallet, But yeah, Matt, well, that's like that was a closing moment for me. So as a performer, right, we had to deal with all these challenges going back in the real world. That was certainly one of them, No sponge bunnies, no examination, no picking cards, no signing, etc. Rough times. So it's another reason I'm happy to be online right now too, huh? It's not a bad place to be.
So that actually brings me to this question: what made you transition from, or maybe not fully transition, but what made you go on more to an online platform? Because I know you've done a lot of great YouTube shorts, videos, and everything.
It's been in my wheelhouse always, right? So as even in high school, I did editing we had a television show. It was a video production facility in our high school. I was the editor for that show. I did camera work for that. It's the only award I received in high school, because I was usually reading magic books and ignoring my scholastic. I was a horrible student, but I did well in editing. So yeah, I was interested in it going back to a young man. And then in the early days of the internet, I was members of different magician forums like the Second Deal. Have you heard of the Second Deal? Yeah.
I have heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, we had a video sharing situation. So we'd upload our videos there. That was back in the late 90s. Moving forward, there was things like Magicians Video Network and Depot or Magicians. It was like a magic YouTube site where people would upload short form videos. The nature of the internet would prevent anything else because it would take an hour to upload a clip on a 56K telephone modem. Right? You couldn't beam it in from your phone in 1 minute. It took a day to get that done. So yeah, it's been in my interest forever. You know, I love the process. I like
so I've seen you become more, I guess, more involved in that process. Probably, I want to say like a year or year and a half back.
Yep.
Well, so yeah, what made you do that? Focus more on that.
Always having an interest. I think I gave it a good gung ho for a couple months, for 3 months or so, and back in like 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, pretty much failed miserably. And right at the end of that failing attempt, YouTube changed their monetization policies to 1,000 subs, 4,000 hours, and I just threw in the towel. I was making that big 3 to 5 cents a day with my 200-300 subscribers, but just taking that away and seeing how far away I was from that goal and knowing that I just wasn't doing it properly. So it's nice to get a reboot. It was nice to have a re-energized mindset during the pandemic. I think what really changed it for me is when I got an iPhone 11. I got an 11 Pro Max, and for the first time, I held this device in my hand that had the power to produce the quality, video and audio, and I could edit on the phone. And it's an amazing device. Things that used to take me, like I said, all day to do a minute, and I can now do on this phone and produce somewhat quality. That's a pretty good device, that iPhone 11 Pro.
Yeah, very, very nice. It's funny you actually mentioned that about your YouTube channel and how you started and stopped because of that policy. It was the same thing for me.
Was it?
I knew I wanted to do YouTube. So in high school, I actually started like a comedy skit type channel with a friend of mine.
Okay.
And I remember it was the exact same thing. We had maybe like maybe even like 80 to like 90 subscribers.
Yeah, you're starting this, the ball's rolling. You think we can do this?
And then we were getting paid like saying like 5-6 cents.
Yeah, pennies.
And I remember we had like $12, and we said, we can buy one meal. This is pretty exciting. And that's when the 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours hit. Yeah. And no, this is not happening.
Yeah, it's a rough goal when you're in the thick of it at the beginning. And I'm going through bizarro world with YouTube right now, and that I've been submitting to YouTube Shorts, which has garnered me this huge laity audience. I set my goal at year's end last year to have 1,000 subscribers, and as we speak today, I have 85,000 eyeballs on me.
Yeah, that is crazy.
It is crazy, right? Most of those are laymen, and on YouTube Shorts. The majority of the audience is international, which I love. I think it's super cool that only like 40% of my audience is the United States. So it's like, wow, that's just super far out. This has worldwide potential.
Yeah, it's great to see how many people you can really touch with your magic when you perform online. It's amazing. I always talked of the same thing. Like I would say maybe 30% of my audience is US based, and everything else is just everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really nice to see. So another question I had. So as you were going through your journey, could you talk about maybe some of the high points and some of the low points and how you overcame those?
Okay. Yeah. High point for sure would be when I started street performing, specifically in Chicago. This is when I left North Carolina. I briefly returned to Cincinnati. My buddy Tom Frank kind of took me under his wing for a month. We worked the Taste of Cincinnati festival, and then he kind of showed me the ropes of real street performing, and I jumped on a bus to Chicago. I had $30 in my pocket, and then I ended up having the time of my life in one of the most amazing cities I've ever been in. I was the only real street performer in the area. It was a very affluent nightlife district, Rush Street, downtown Chicago. There weren't a lot of buskers at all. So I was killing it, making lots of money. Unknown to me, though, I was not a good busker. I just thought I was, and I was getting by. It would be New Orleans that would provide that down point that you speak of. And I traveled here working festivals where I continued to do well. Like right before I came to New Orleans, I was on the front page of Little Rock's newspaper. A street performer Doug Kahn's in town working the International Fest. So I'm like, okay, I've been an atmosphere performer in an amusement park. I've had a successful run in Chicago. I'm working my way through festivals. I arrived in New Orleans where my first day I did one show and it was a pretty good one. It wasn't bad. And that was the last good show I would do for months. You know, arriving in a city where tourists are accosted every block, where you have 3 street performers on every corner, and the struggle became real instantly. So I immediately became a starving artist for, well, really until I started working at Magic Masters. And I wouldn't say that I ever became a great street performer in New Orleans for years later. So,
you know, it's almost weird that you mentioned that, because first thing I think of when you say you performed in New Orleans or when you're doing street magic in New Orleans, I would immediately think you get a lot more attention than probably anywhere else or almost anywhere else. And then I didn't realize,
if you're good at what you're doing, you do. If you're not good at what you're doing, you're being compared to all the acts that are there being good. So you get discarded quickly. And like I said,
that's the one thing I didn't consider. Yeah, that there's other people that you're being compared to.
And New Orleans is a city where there's people selling timeshares or selling tours. There's a bunch of homeless people. There's, you know, drug addicts want money, and 100 street performers. So everywhere people have their hand out, you have to be top tier to make it happen here. It's a great place to learn and develop, because once you do that, now you can work anywhere pretty much in the country. If you can, you know, there's formulas that work here, maybe don't apply elsewhere, but I think if you can work in New Orleans, you can work anywhere.
All right,
here's the deal for me. I ended up producing a child. That was quite a magic trick. I met my first love on the streets of New Orleans, and we brought children into the world. But yeah, I could not care for this situation as a street performer. So I took a job with Magic Masters, which was a great paying company. They sold high-end magic or top dollar magic to tourists. And it was a good wage with health insurance, and I worked with them off and on for years and years. So they really helped me. I raised 3 children in this city, and that was a big part of that. So,
so were you still doing performing during that time?
Yeah, you know, I segued into working more gigs. So I just kind of left the streets behind, and I was working the magic shop. We got a lot of calls for gigs in the shop, and then I just got my name on the, you know, event planners in New Orleans and started working more as a professional. And all those crappy gigs I was taught, not nice, they were horrible gigs. Sometimes they were good. You know what I do now is I bring my own setup. I just street perform at the event. When they call me to do that crap, I'm like, I'll tell you what I'll do. Here's what I'll do, and it'll work great. And if they don't want that, I don't do it. But I'm not strolling around with Rockin' Doopsie playing at 11 volume and I'm interrupting tables all night. I'm not doing that anymore.
I mean, yeah, it's always great to perform on your own terms and have your own standards. Yeah. So what would you say was your favorite type of performance, whether it be you know, doing the gigs or street magic?
Always intimate close up, and that's kind of irrelevant if it's a magic shop, street performing, or any gig. You know, I've tried working different things. I've tried stage magic. Like the street show I do now, if you've seen the clips, my audience is very close. I do small, quick shows. I might do 12 to 15 minutes, if that. I'm looking for between 30 to 50 people, maybe. And back in the day, I thought I was only a successful street performer if I could stop 200 people and make $100 a show. It's good money, and I could do that. I could still do that if I wanted, but if I'm going to be a happy person out there, then I'm going to need to go do and that's what I've been doing the last 3 years, and I've been happier as a performer than I ever have been, and certainly in street performing. Just, you know, close up, intimate, hands-on, no fourth wall. That's what I like.
Very nice. Yeah, that's I would say the same thing. I mean, not that I've done a wide range of performances.
Well, if you perform, you say you perform for family, friends, and like your students or buddies, and that's the same thing. You get that experience. You know what it's like. It's a whole world different. Where say you're on a stage and the spotlights are on you and you can't see your audience. You're just doing.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ballgame. And kudos to those who do it well. It's just another facet of our art. One that again, I can work these things. I just feel like I'd rather not.
Yep. I feel that. Before I entered, I guess the world of magic and performance, I used to see everything as pretty much the same in terms of how you're interacting with the audience, how you're displaying things. But then when you actually get into the field, it's crazy to see how many different paths that you can take.
Yeah.
It's
a challenging learning process. If you've never worked these stage events, first time you get out there on a stage and you don't realize you're not going to see your audience's eyes, or what does a lab, I'm chained up. I have to speak with a microphone. So if you move away from the mic, now they don't hear me. I'm not used to practicing like this. These are, it's all. Tell you what you get. If you're going to be a pro, get Ken Weber's book. What's the name of the book? Maximum Entertainment?
One thing I love about doing these interviews and meeting with people is that there's always a lot of knowledge that you have to share. So it's always nice whether I'm meeting with people who do just YouTube or whether I'm meeting with performers such as yourself or maybe people who just like coming up with card tricks. There's always something to learn. So
isn't it wonderful that our art has all this? There's so many great ways that you can do magic. I love it. And I don't love it when people say you have to do it this way. Sometimes you get those magicians are like, you got to do the storytelling or it's not a magic trick. No, you don't. There's a lot of ways you can enjoy this art and present it properly as well. I do agree that probably if we're going to count magic as a high art, in its highest form, that it needs to be presented probably with a thoughtful script with choreographed motions and the proper, high and low points of drama and such.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do it right. It's just maybe the highest way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's whatever entertains, or maybe it even depends on the type of audience that you have.
But like I was saying earlier, if I could find a job where all I had to do was research magic, sign me up, Jim. I'm in. I'm signed. I'll leave YouTube tomorrow if I can have a livable wage. Just
researching magic.
Yeah, maybe I'd be the Magic Castle librarian or something like that. A gig like that I could do.
That actually sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it's too bad there's only one of those jobs. Bill Goodwin, I think, is running the show, right? Maybe. I can go get in good graces with Bill and see what I can work out.
So I guess this actually brings me to my next question. What would you say are some tips that you would give to people to help them grow in their magic careers?
The biggie, which I learned early, is if you want to be a good performer, perform every chance you can.
Absolutely.
So every chance you can, perform. If you want to be a good trickster, well, learn the bottom deal at a young age. I'm still working on it 40 years later. Practice all the time. That's what I do. I think there's a lot of people complain they can't do this, they can't do that, but they don't really try hard or put the practice in. We're talking right now. I've been practicing for the majority of this interview, not much, but I'm twirling the wand or I'm fiddling the cards, and if I'm watching a movie, I'm palming a coin. And practice a bunch and perform all you can. It's a pretty simple solution.
It's funny you say that because when I first started doing magic, when I was, I think, 12, 13 years old, when I first started doing it was, I'm not sure if you had seen of this, Dan and Dave Buck had released a trilogy, and that inspired me so much to go out and learn magic.
That was an amazing set. And I'm quite familiar with Dan and Dave's work. They were an integral part of the Second Deal. And I remember them at Second Deal conventions when they were 15 and 16, a couple of twins. And they would sit silently and just do flourishes. And they had lecture notes in their backpack they would sell. And this eventually became an empire.
Yeah.
It's watching their rise to greatness. I experienced every step of the way, and I thought, wow, these guys are hitting it out of the park. They really created cardistry. There was other guys. In fact, there was a group called Handlords that really despised Dan and Dave's work and the people that followed them, because they were progressing the arts. This is old stuff, but yeah, it's like turf wars and cardistry days back in the early 2000s. Dan and Dave's crew versus the Devo. Jerry says, well, what's his name? Jerry Devo's buddy. No idea. Do you know who Devo is?
I do not.
Wow.
I've actually never heard of Handlords.
Wow, this pleases me greatly. They were okay. You need to do this. Write this down. Write down Handlords with a Z, and write down the Ullman Trials. Ulmen. The Ullman Trials. And I'm surprised you don't know who Devo is. You might have just got a demerit, son.
I promise you, if we ever talk again next time we meet, I will know what all of these things are.
All right. Devo's going to be mad.
So so for me, Dan and Dave were a huge influence, and watching their magic, it was, and I remember them saying specifically that this is not something you can learn and perform tomorrow. And I almost took that up as a challenge. Like, I can do this. And I remember immediately learning it, spending maybe 15, 20 minutes practicing, and then trying to perform it and just falling flat on my face. And it was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I hate this so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so
I
then what? The next day you woke up and decided you were wrong the day before? What happened?
I did not perform for the longest time. I just, I kind of stopped. It was like more very simple card tricks, but I think just fairly recently, maybe like 7, maybe not fairly recently, but like 7, 8 years ago, is when I really started actually practicing. And like you were saying, it's constant practicing, whether you're like, even when I'm working at work, I always have a deck of cards that I'm practicing with. If I'm watching a movie or doing anything, it's always, it's kind of a nice way to have your hands occupied and also be able to really master a move. So that's, I could 100% agree with that in terms of practicing. Just do it whenever possible. Okay, so another question I had for you. Have you ever made a mistake while performing? And
is there an and to this? Go ahead.
And how did you handle it, or what reactions did you get from it?
The answer is no. I'm flawless. Next question. I am the master of mistakes, and maybe I attribute this to working venues like the street so much, where you can take developing material onto a venue that doesn't have to be 100%, and you get a chance to make these errors that long term make you a better magician, because by executing these errors, as long as the show goes on, you know how to correct the errors on the fly. So we're going to go back to perform all you can. Can I pick an instance? Like I can, first thing comes to mind. One day I'm doing the cigarette vanish on the street. I would usually borrow a hat or a scarf. This one day I'm putting the cigarette and the ash flew off and burns a hole on this lady's $100 scarf. Moments like that, well, I'm sorry, lady, can I pay you for the scarf? And it's just, you can't recover, right? But like you miss your top change, or drop a double, work through it. Come on, trudge on. The show's going to go on, and awesome. That's that, right? Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, I think that's pretty much all that I had for you today. Do you have any ending remarks or anything else you'd like to share?
Wow. I feel like I should be deep and meaningful here, but my inner social media presence just wants to say, hey, tune into YouTube and TikTok, and you'll hear me talk there, right? I'm trying to present myself out in these venues, but not really. Oh, Thank you for having me. I appreciate you reaching out. It makes me feel like, wow, maybe my voice means something, will help hopefully find some ear holes and make a difference in someone's life down the line. And speaking of such, I'm quite accessible, folks. So if you hear this interview, if you do have a question for me and if I can help you along your way, my mission statement is to make better magic, and I'll be happy to help you. So find me on Facebook or find me on YouTube or TikTok or send me an email. Find that address. You can find it at conjure.com if you need to. That's my website, and I'll help you out. So there, I said that.
Fantastic. Well, Doug, it was an absolute pleasure having you here with us today. And I'll put the links to all your social media, your website, everything down in the description so everyone can check that out. And everyone who's watching, you guys definitely need to check out Doug's performances if you haven't already, because I was just doing that today, yesterday, and the day before, and I really, really just enjoyed.
It takes 3 days to get through this. It takes 3 days to get through the TikTok library. I've been busy over there. Yeah, thank you, buddy. But thank you. Yeah, I try hard. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes not, but I try hard.
I would say 99.9% of the time, for all the performances I've seen, have been just generous, phenomenal.
But thank you.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today at the card table, and I'll see all of you next time.
Big shout out to Doug for being on with us today. It was a real pleasure. I'll put the links to his website, social media, all that stuff down in the description, so make sure you go ahead and check him out. And now listen, my favorite part is the bonus footage. So if you want to check that out, I'll put the link to that in the description as well. That's all we got. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you here next time at the card table.